Coming up on Network Africa, Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan expresses great sadness after a landslide in small-scale mine leaves 22 dead. Zambia to receive its first batch of cholera vaccines from the World Health Organization. Plus, UN peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of Congo to leave the country by the end of 2024. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin in East Africa. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has expressed great sadness at the loss of lives after 22 people were killed following a landslide at a small-scale mine in the northern region of the country. The accident occurred at the Ngalita mine in the Bariada district of Simiyu region. Officials say the accident happened early on Saturday after a group of people aged between 24 and 38 started mining in an area where activity had been restricted due to ongoing heavy rains. Mining accidents are not uncommon in the country, with workers often lacking the tools and materials considered necessary to operate safely. Torrential downpours in the country since December have also led to landslides and floods in the region, adding obstacles to the miners. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo has announced a complete withdrawal of forces from the country by the end of this year. Head of the mission, known as MONUSCO, Bintu Keita, made this known in the Congolese capital, Kinshasa. The announcement is coming after the Congolese government called for the UN mission to leave the country, saying it had failed to protect civilians from armed groups in the country. Or numerous armed groups, including Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, and M23 rebels are active in the restive eastern areas of the country, such as North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri provinces, where civilians face violence and displacement. The forces, which had been in the country for 25 years, will now withdraw in 3 phases, beginning in the South Kivu province, where at least 2,000 security personnel will leave by the end of April. 14 UN bases in the province will be taken over by the Congolese security forces. Then, after that, forces in North Kivu and Ituri will also leave. Well, back here in Nigeria, the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has assured families of the fallen heroes of continuous support. Governor Sanwo-Olu, who was speaking at the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day, says the service of the armed forces is well appreciated and will not be taken for granted.
January the 15th is known in Nigeria as the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, a day set aside to commemorate the nation's departed compatriots, as well as honor living veterans. Celebrating the day in Lagos State, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu lays wreath to appreciate fallen heroes for paying the supreme price for the peace and security of the country.
The government and the people of Nigeria appreciate all of their effort, what they've done, and for serving officers to know that the country will continue to appreciate their gallant work, even while they are alive or even when they pass on, as it has become a national significant day that everybody must honor them, appreciate them and wish them well and continue to encourage them.
It's a similar exercise in neighboring Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, where there's a special parade by the Army, Navy, as well as a 21-gun salute, release of pigeons satisfying peace, progress, and unity. Governor Dagba Abiodun lays a wreath at the Arcade Ground, Governor's office, joined by heads of security agencies, traditional rulers, amongst others. He appeals to Nigerians to shun all forms of violence and divisive tendencies and have faith in the country's leaders.
To show an act of kindness to these patriots who paid the ultimate price in defending the territorial integrity of our country. We also want to encourage all of us to reach out to their families. Government cannot do it alone.
Further south, in Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde believes it's important for Nigerians to continue to cooperate and support service chiefs. He made this appeal after joining service commanders to lay the wreath in remembrance of fallen heroes. Governor Makinde also promises that his government will do all it can to make sure families of fallen heroes are not forgotten.
For our fallen heroes, for the people they left behind, we will continue to give them support.
For the Osun State Governor, Demola Adeleke, himself and the citizens of the state value and appreciate the sacrifice of the armed forces.
We value and appreciate your sacrifice to the nation. You should be rest assured that we are attending to your demand as listed in your speeches.
In the months leading up to the celebration, the government unveils a remembrance poppy and launches an appeal fund to support living veterans and the families of fallen heroes.
Mr. Speaker, we appreciate you. This Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day 2024.
Well, it's the first day of the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland, and the Vice President of Nigeria is leading the delegation there. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy of Nigeria, Mr. Wale Edun, spoke to our correspondent Juliana Olayinka on what to expect from the summit.
Well, we're here this week led by His Excellency, the Vice President Kashim Shettima, leading the Nigerian delegation to this all-important dialogue. We have made it a point to be part of the conversation, to be in the room all around the world this year, from the Paris Financing Summit all the way through to, of course, UNGA and COP28, not forgetting the World Bank annual meetings. I think the important topics of the day now are climate change and more and more generative AI, or artificial intelligence in particular. And it's important that we as Nigerians are here. We are the largest country in Africa. We do have an important role to play. And so we're here to make our voices heard and to also tell our own story of progress, our own story of making Nigeria an investment destination.
Uganda is playing host to the 19th Non-Aligned Movement Summit, which begins today with the theme Deepening Cooperation for Shared Global Affluence. Over 4,000 delegates, including the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and heads of states and government, will be attending the summit, which runs for 9 days. Well, discussions are expected to center around climate change, global conflicts, human rights issues, food security, amongst other global subjects. In the meantime, police authorities say security has been heightened at airports, meeting venues and hotels in Kampala, with private security guards banned from carrying firearms until after the end of the summit. All private security firms have been notified that due to the summit, the movement of private security guards with firearms will not be allowed until the end of the month. The summit for this year will be held at the Uganda's Speke Resort, the 5th time the meeting's venue is in Africa. We have Halima Atumani, the VOA's correspondent in Kampala, for us at this time. Hello, Halima. Thank you for joining us on the program. What more can you tell us about the summit and how it's expected to go over the next few days?
Good evening and thank you for having me. Well, the summit, as you mentioned, is being held at Speke Resort Munyonyo, kicked off today. And for today, we had senior delegates from 93 countries. Remember, the NAM, as it's called, NAM, or Non-Alignment Movement, is made up of 120 countries. And so today we have members from 93 countries. But one thing that came out clearly were two issues. I know they talked about their agenda, talking about, climate change, things to do with the economy. But the one subject, actually the two subjects that stood out very clearly today was the issue of Palestine and the ongoing conflict between Gaza, between Palestine and Israel. That came out clearly. The Arab countries made sure that when they were given the microphone to make a point regarding how to adopt the previous meetings during the last meeting in Azerbaijan, they decided today is the day when they will all come out with one voice and decide to talk about Palestine. And I think there are words that they used, such as aggression, violence, genocide. These are things that came out strongly. So we are yet to see. This is just the first meeting. We have, as you said, 9 days. And of course, the Palestinian representative, Mr. Riyad Mansour, did mention that, they want a resolution out of this meeting. They want to see NAM members support them. But Palestine and Israeli conflict aside, of course, last week we also saw another conflict in being brewed up in the Horn of Africa, that is between Ethiopia and Somalia. And again, Somalia has come up, decided to use this opportunity, asking NAM members to show them that they recognize that Somalia has its own sovereignty, and they need to see that NAM comes up and says that Somalia, we should respect Somalia's territorial sovereignty against what Somaliland and Ethiopia agreed on, and the deal they agreed on. So these were the two issues. Of course, when they broke out into the sectoral committees, the media was not allowed into those meetings. But I guess during the course of the week, we shall be able to update our viewers on what's exactly is going to be discussed.
Well, Halima, concerning security now, why are the authorities banning private security guards from carrying firearms?
Well, the Ugandan authorities have not left security to any chance. Remember, Uganda has been, since last year, I think it was both the British and the US missions in the country that were warning people from who were coming into Uganda, saying Uganda is not safe. We have, attacks by the Allied Democratic Forces. This is a militant group based in the DRC that is affiliated to ISIS. So because of these attacks, there's always been all these alerts, the travel alerts from these two countries saying Uganda is not safe. And I think since last week, the Uganda police in particular has been sending out, especially on its Twitter pages, telling delegates, please come to Uganda. Uganda is safe. We're going to make sure your security is guaranteed. If you move around the streets, to be honest with you, either you're going to get either a Special Forces Command soldier standing next to a military police command or a police officer. Now, these are basically the most trained, aside from the police, the most trained units of the military that we have, who are now in charge of any kind of security. So obviously, I'm sure they've decided just to avoid any mistakes, possibly by private security guards. Every type of security right now only falls in the hands of either the military or the police.
Right, the authorities are not leaving anything to chance. Well, Uganda is hosting this year's meeting, and as President Yoweri Museveni took leadership of the NAM Forum from Azerbaijan, like you mentioned earlier. Talk to us about the government's plan during its term, a 3-year term.
Well, today we only got an opportunity to speak to the Permanent Secretary Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that is Mr. Vincent Magire. And when we asked him what Uganda's agenda is going to be, one of the things that he mentioned was that Uganda is mainly going to focus on cohesion and collaboration within the NAM movement, and whatever it is that they are going to be spearheading to talk about, it is going to be strictly on consensus. Well, we do not know if this is going to be just an agenda for this meeting or the 3-year agenda. So I think we'll have to wait and see what else Uganda has in store for this meeting. This is a great platform. Before the beginning of the meeting, I think speaking to local media, Uganda has consistently talked about how they are going to use this to market themselves. And indeed, there are side meetings, there are going to be side trade meetings. As you're well aware, Uganda was recently kicked out of the AGOA agreement with the US. So Uganda is kind of struggling. To use the minister's words last week, that is the Minister for Information, he said, as Ugandans, we've been failing to attract both investors and tourists. So this is going to be an opportunity for us, for people to make people see Uganda in a different light. We've had all these issues. For example, aside from ADF, we've had the law against the anti-homosexuality community that has caused a lot of backlash from Uganda, not just from the US, the UK, but also from the World Bank. So I think Uganda is using this opportunity to sell itself and also try and get new partners.
All right then, Halima. I mean, we have 8 more days for the forum. Thank you so much, Halima Atumani in Kampala.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Still to come on the program. Morocco is celebrating centuries-old Amazigh New Year as an official holiday. More details after the break. Please join us again. Welcome back to the program. Schools have been closed in Mauritius amid predictions of heavy rains that could result in flooding. The nearby French island of Réunion has been placed on the highest cyclone alert level after it was hit by a powerful tropical cyclone, Belal. Authorities are warning residents to stay indoors and emergency services are no longer authorized to intervene. The extreme weather conditions have caused fatalities in both Réunion and Mauritius. Well, Zambia is now set to receive 1.6 million doses of cholera vaccines as the country suffers one of its worst outbreaks. The vaccines have been secured by Zambia's government in collaboration with World Health Organization and the United Nations Children Agency, UNICEF. Well, the doses will be officially received by the Health Ministry after arriving to the country late on Sunday. More than 350 deaths and 9,000 infections have been recorded since the outbreak started last year, spreading to 9 out of Zambia's 10 provinces. The country has undertaken several measures to curb the ongoing outbreak, including delaying school reopening and also limiting attendance at cholera victims' funerals to 5 people. The government has also urged citizens in the towns to relocate to villages, as poor sanitation in some densely populated urban areas is a good breeding ground for the disease. The country's biggest sports stadium, the National Heroes Stadium, had to be repurposed to treat patients of cholera. At least 11 people have died after heavy rains and severe floods hit South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province over the weekend. The severe weather conditions have also caused widespread devastation, including damaging property and infrastructure, cutting off power and displacing dozens and trapping several other residents in their homes or their vehicles. Authorities have closed several public swimming pools and beaches in Durban as a precautionary measure. The South African Weather Service has predicted that heavy rains and thunderstorms will continue throughout this week, reaching peak levels on Wednesday and Thursday. Hundreds of protesters gathered outside the United States consulate in Johannesburg over the weekend, demanding action be taken to end the ongoing war in Gaza. Hamas militants entered Israel from the Gaza Strip on October 7th and killed about 1,200 people, mostly civilians. They took over 200 hostages from Israel to the Gaza Strip. Well, since then, the Israeli Defense Forces has killed nearly 10,000 people in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. Well, some people are now calling for South Africa to stop doing business with Israel. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samosa, gives us more details.
Protesters gathered for the Global Day of Action in support of Palestine, holding signs, waving flags, and sharing personal stories of the impact they believe the conflict has on Palestinian lives.
My house was destroyed. My car was destroyed. And I have been displaced, as I said, for 4 times. I moved from a Rimal neighborhood, which was flattened to the ground. It was flattened to the ground. People were left under the rubble for weeks.
Chants of Free Palestine, to the river, to the sea, echo through the air as demonstrators express their discontent over what they perceive as Israel's USA-funded genocide.
So this is a whole, it's not just a mistake, their propaganda. It is a science, a crafted science of manufacturing lies, false information, false capitalizing on Jewish mourning, on our ancestors who passed in the Holocaust. They are now using that as a pretext for genocide of a similar fashion. We say no. So it's part of a set of manufactured lies aimed to discredit the remarkable legal work of the South African legal team.
Free Palestine! Their genocide, their intent for genocide, the speech of their leaders has been laid bare for the entire world to see. They've only been talking genocide and they've been carrying out genocide. They've bombed and killed more than 23,000 Palestinians. They've destroyed hospitals, they've destroyed schools. There's been intent in every public official, Israeli public official who's spoken. There has been intent for genocide, which has been carried out by the Israeli forces on the ground.
Some locals want South Africa to cut diplomatic ties with Israel.
I mean, let's look at the investment. In actual fact, the investment that have come from Israel at the recent time, have been very destructive. I, for one, as a president of the union, we had a 6-month strike demanding a divestment of an Israeli company, Milko, that operates in a Jewish settlement on a Palestinian land. That company had taken over Clover, the biggest dairy manufacturer or manufacturer of dairy products in this country. That investment, or so-called investment, it led to a closure of 6 factories. It led to dismissal of thousands of workers.
Protesters here are telling me that they are proud of South Africa's legal team for taking up the case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Some are of the view that Israel does not have a history but a criminal record. But we now understand and know that Israel has vehemently denied all the allegations. From Johannesburg, South Africa, outside the U.S. consulate, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
And finally, on the program, Moroccans are celebrating across the country as the centuries-old Amazigh New Year becomes a national holiday. A cultural event was held in honor of the New Year at the Royal Institute of Amazigh Culture in Rabat.
Women and men in traditional clothing, dancing, playing musical instruments and singing in the courtyard of the Royal Institute of Amazigh Culture in Rabat, featuring an exhibition of pictures dedicated to Amazigh culture. As celebrations continue, the head of the Tiskiwin Band for Amazigh Art, Ibrahim Brass, is concerned that traditional dancing is going through a crisis.
In 2017, the Tiskiwin dance was registered in the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. However, this type of art is going through several crises. Most recently, the earthquake that hit Morocco. The natural disaster has forced people to emigrate to the city. And when the people who usually practice this art leave their villages, they stop practicing it, thus ceasing the seamless transition of this art form from one generation to another.
Mona Irhal, who took part in the event, adds that locals are happy to celebrate Amazigh New Year as an official holiday.
This is an Amazigh costume from the city of Tafraut. The costume consists of a white dress, red kaftan, and silver jewelry. We're very happy to celebrate this occasion, which is no longer limited to the Amazigh people, but has become a recognized national holiday.
The Amazigh New Year is celebrated on January the 13th. According to historians, the first day of the year, and the Amazigh calendar, marks the anniversary of the ascent of Libyan King Sheshonq to the throne of Egypt. Earlier on, Morocco's Amazigh community celebrated their new year unofficially amongst family and friends. But in May 2023, Moroccan King Mohammed VI declared the event to be a national paid holiday.
Well, Happy New Year to them. And that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.